everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Gina, and if this is your first time here, welcome to my channel. In this channel we share fashion styling tips, sewing DIYs, and also tutorials. So please welcome to my channel. I have so many goodies in store for you. In today's video we're going to be learning how to draft a basic bodice pattern, and in this tutorial I have made it very simple, in simple easy steps, stress-free and easy to grasp. Please click on that subscribe button, turn on post notification bell so that you'll be the first to know whenever I post a new video. Without wasting much of your time, let's get into the video. For this tutorial, we're going to need some tape, scissors, pencil, marker, eraser, and your curved rule. So let's get right into it. So the first thing you're going to do is to measure ½ inch from the top of your paper and draw the line. This line will serve as our shoulder line. So the next thing you do is to take your shoulder measurement divided by 2 from the center and front. Just watch where the arrow is pointing out. So place your tape there and take your shoulder divided by 2. My shoulder is 15, divided by 2 is 7.5. So from that point you just marked, you're going to come down by 1 inch. Then from the original point you marked on the shoulder line, you go in by your shoulder seam. Mine is 4.5. So you connect the shoulder seam point and the 1 inch drop together. The next thing you're going to do is to take your neckline. So for the depth of my neckline, I went down by 3.5 inches. The style of your neckline depends on the kind of pattern you're drafting. Remember, we're drafting a basic pattern. So for this pattern, this is the depth of our neckline. So you go ahead to square out the line, and then you use your curve rule to connect the line and give it a round neckline. Just watch what I'm doing right now. The next step is from the original shoulder line, you're going to measure your bust points, under bust points, your waist points, and your hip points. Alright, so go ahead and take these measurements. I made a video teaching you how to take proper body measurements, so do well to check out that video. So here you see that we have dotted the bust point, under bust point, waist point, and then we have the hip point. So just go ahead to dot out all the points, then you draw your horizontal lines. Now we have to get our chest line. To get the chest line, you place your tape from the new shoulder point to the bust point, divide it by 2. Whatever you get, you mark it across, and then you draw out the horizontal line, just like you see me doing here. After getting the chest line, you can go ahead to label your pattern. On the chest line, you're going to measure your chest width divided by 2. My chest width at the front is 14, divided by 2, that's 7. So go ahead to take that measurement. The next thing we're going to do is to look for the armhole length. So what you're going to do is that you get your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. Okay, so your bust circumference divided by 6, whatever you get, you add 1.5 inches. Then from your new shoulder slant, you're going to take down the measurements. For me, I had 7.5, so that is the armhole line. Next thing you're going to do is to draw out the line. You can decide to draw it to the end of the paper, it doesn't really matter. So on that armhole line, you're going to measure your bust circumference divided by 4 plus ½ inch. So go ahead to divide your bust by 4 plus ½ inch. Then you connect all the lines together from the shoulder slant to the chest, and from the chest to the armhole line. Next step is to mark your dart. So you're going to be needing your bust span measurement divided by 2. For me, my bust span is 7.5, which will give me 3.7. So you just go ahead to mark that. When you get to your hip line, you're going to come up by 3 inches. It is from that 3 inches level that you now mark your bust span divided by 2. Just watch what I did here. So you mark your bust span divided by 2 and then connect all the points from the bust point down to 3 inches above the hip point. On the waistline, you're going to come in by ½ inch on both sides of the line. These are called dart legs. So you go ahead to connect this line or this point to 3 inches above the hip point. On the bust line, you're going to come down by 1 inch. This is to ensure that after making your dress, the dart will create fitness around that area and also create some room for the bust to sit properly in. Alright, so you go ahead to connect it. Now the next step is to take in the horizontal measurements. So on the bust line, you're going to take in your bust circumference divided by 4 plus half inch. You mark it. On your under bust line, your under bust measurement divided by 4. Then you go ahead to measure the dart intake on the under bust line and replace it again. The same thing on the waistline, your waist circumference divided by 4. You mark it and then you measure the dart intake, which is 1 inch. Then you replace it. On your hip line, you measure your hip circumference divided by 4, then you mark. We're going to be adding allowances later on. Then you go ahead to connect all the lines together from the armhole to the bust point, to the under bust point, waist, and then the hip. Pay attention to how I am placing my ruler, as this is very vital. After connecting all your lines, the next thing that we'll need to do for the front pattern is to get the bust dart. I ended up doing that at the end of the video, so do well to pay attention to that part as well. Moving on to the back pattern, just extend your line to the other side of the paper, that's our shoulder line. Then from the center back, you're going to measure 1 inch and draw out the line. This allowance is going to serve as the zip allowance. Alright, so the next thing that we're going to do again, just like the front pattern, taking the shoulder measurement divided by 2, which is 7.5 for me. Then from that mark, you come down by 1 inch. Then you take in your shoulder seam, you connect the 1 inch drop and the shoulder seam together, just like that. Afterwards, you go ahead to mark in your bust points, waist points, and your hip points. Now, if you watched the video where I talked about how to say body measurements, you would notice that for the front and the back waistline, they had different measurements, so don't get it confused. Our front waistline is longer than the back waistline because of the bust we have in front of our body. Okay, for me, my front waistline or waist point was 16, but for the back I had 14. So make sure not to get it confused and make sure to put in the correct measurements. For the back hip line, we're going to be making a readjustment. Just stay tuned and follow correctly. Just like we did in the front, the next thing that we're going to do is to get the chest line. Again, you measure from your 1 inch drop to your bust point divided by 2. Whatever you get, you use that measurement as your chest line. And it is the same thing as the front. On that chest line, you're going to measure your back width divided by 2. For me, my back width is 15 divided by 2, that's 7.5. So go ahead and mark that. Just like the front, the next thing that we're going to do is to get the armhole length, which is the bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. So go ahead, from the 1 inch drop, you take down your measurement, and it should be the same thing as the front, so you can go ahead to connect them just to be on the same line. Again, you can decide to draw the armhole line to the end of the paper. It just depends on you. On that armhole line, if you notice, I am taking my measurement from that zipper line. Do not extend it more than that zipper line, okay? So you take in your bust circumference divided by 4, but do not add half inch now. Alright, so you go ahead to connect from your shoulder drop to your chest line and then to the armhole line. The reason why we added half inch in the front is to give extra room for the bust at the front. To get the hip line on the back pattern, you are simply going to measure the distance between the waist and the hip line on the front pattern. Whatever you get, you take the measurements back to your back pattern and take it down from the waistline. This is because by the time we've taken in the bust darts on the fourth pattern, the hip on both the front and the back will meet. Okay, so just pay attention to what I am doing and you'd understand. The next thing to do is to mark your darts. So on the waistline, you're going to take in your bust span divided by 2, also on your bust point, and 3 inches above your hip line. So after connecting the line, you're going to measure in half inch for your dart legs on your waistline,
connect it to the hip 3 inches above the hip point, and this time around the line or the dart would get to the bust point because there is no bust at the back of our body. The next step is to take a horizontal measurement. So on the bust line, you're going to measure your bust circumference divided by 4. On your waistline, your waist circumference divided by 4. You measure your dart intake and then replace it. On your hip line, your hip divided by 4, and then you mark. And go ahead to connect all the lines together. For the back neckline, we're going to be using a neck depth of 1 inch. So you just connect it to your shoulder seam and then use your curved rule to draw out a round neckline. So moving on to the front pattern, now we want to draft the bust dart. The difference between the front waist point and the back waist point is 2 inches. So you are going to measure 2 inches from the bust point and then measure 1 inch away from our dart line. Again, this is so it creates space for the bust to sit in. Now you connect those 2 points together and we have our bust dart. By the time we have cut on our fabric and sewn in the darts, you realize that the hip points or the side seam for the front and the back would match. One will not be longer than the other. This particular pattern can be used in drafting your bustiers, your corsets. You can manipulate your darts. Later on, I would make tutorials on how to manipulate darts and how to sew bustiers, so do what to look out for those videos. So after doing this step, you can go ahead to add allowances, round it, and I will do that and show you how it is done. Around the neckline, shoulder and armhole, I'm going to be marking 1/2 inch for allowance, for seam allowance. From the armhole line, you're going to mark in 1 inch down from the armhole line down to the bust, the waist, and to the hip. You're going to be using 1 inch. Same thing at the back. If you've watched up to this end, thank you so much for sticking around, and I hope this tutorial was helpful. Please do well to like and share my videos. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel because there are more goodies coming your way. Also, do well to check out my other videos. They might come in handy. Thank you so much for staying. Bye. See you in my next video.